Hi, Maureen from Navigate Food Safety here. When we first start working with a customer, what happens quite often is they're a little messy under the hood and they think they are the only ones who can't seem to get managing food safety right. What we try to do right away is bring a fresh perspective. Everybody's a little messy under the hood. A lot of people are facing challenges. It's really common. Sometimes those challenges are facility related, but a lot of times they're related to big challenges that face the entire industry. The next thing we see is a look of relief. Now, knowing about these challenges does not actually solve everything for them, but it is really good to know what's in your control, what's not in your control, and perhaps what other forces are at play. So we asked Alex Hanley, our founder, to unpack his thoughts on the three big challenges facing the industry. We hope it brings a fresh perspective to you and what you're facing in your facility today, and we hope you enjoy it.
So we see three big problems in food safety. So the first problem is that people know where they want to be. We call that being ready every day just because we need a word to call it. And people are not quite there yet. And the reason they're not there is, amongst other things, because they don't know how to go from here to here. If they knew how to be here, they'd be there all the time. It's pretty consistent in the industry. People want to be working collaboratively. They don't want to be working at cross purposes between departments. They don't want to be working in silos. They want to be working efficiently. Nobody wants to be wasting their time with red tape. They want to be consistent in the way they execute programs. They want to be executing the programs the same way all year long, not having kind of big ups and downs in the amount of work or in the level of execution. Now, the second problem we see is that if we think of the manufacturing industry and then the audit industry or the certification industry. So there's auditors on this side, there's, let's say, manufacturers on this side. Let's say you're bakers, or let's say you're working for a canning company or whatever it is. People tend to understand their processes and their product very well. So bakers understand baking, canners understand canning. People who make chicken pot pies, they understand what's required to make chicken pot pies. On the other side, you've got the auditors who understand the standards, the technicalities of the standard to the nth degree. Now, the problem is that the canners don't understand those technicalities so much, and the auditors might not understand what makes canning safe or what makes chicken pot pies safe to the same degree that these people do. So there's kind of a gap between those two groups. And so because there's no way to interpret the standard consistently for all the canning plants or all the bakeries, what happens is when every auditor comes over, they interpret the standard based on their understanding. And so that leads to inconsistencies because we do not have a tool to ensure that we consistently understand this generic standard the same way for every canning plant, which is going to be different than the way we're going to understand or interpret this standard for the bakeries. But we should always interpret that standard the same way for every bakery. So right now the gap, that the lack of tools to be consistent would be the second problem that we see. So the third challenge relates to audits. I would say that auditors are out of control. And now that might be a little bit incendiary as a statement. So what I mean by that is literally that the controls that are in place are not working as they should. There's a ton of controls. There are a ton of controls in place to ensure that the audits are fair and thorough and all that. And most of the time those controls are working, but they're not working all the time. So if you were a baker and 1 bun out of 10 was burnt, you'd say that your process, there's something radically wrong with the process and that needs to be fixed. Well, with the audit industry, I don't know what the percentage is, but there are some burnt bun situations. We need to be able to sort out the behavior and the performances that are unacceptable. Like there's no spec for auditing, for instance. So the line between what's acceptable and what's not acceptable is not a line that's generally agreed to within the industry. And that should be perceived as a major, as a critical problem to start with.
We hope this video brought you some fresh perspective that you might take into managing food safety in your facility today, and we hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.